I am going to talk about drag today. I'm going to talk about why it's absolutely insane. I am on TikTok and I am also I'm also happy to be on YouTube and Twitter. And I'm aware of some of the limitations of being on any platform because we find ourselves not really being able to say what we need to. So, I'm going to talk about drag. First of all, I just want to say that there are a lot of women that keep talking about extremists. I mean, they're insane, right? But I, when it comes to this fight, let me just say we can elect Labour in the next election in the UK, and we can think that they don't agree with self ID, and we know that that's exactly what they do agree with. They've just called it something else. We also know that the Conservative government have been in power over the last uh, decade and more, whilst this utter nonsense has got through. And what we know is even if they said, okay, a woman is an adult human female, no transitioning children, let's have a look and see if we can get this out of schools. Until it's unlawful, until it's completely unlawful for any publicly funded organization to promote this ideology, I just don't know why you would be celebrating like a massive victory because it makes absolutely no sense to me. But anyway, let's talk about drag because I think it's really important. And if you're with me on Twitter or YouTube, then you can have a look at this.
Oh.
Cream or something out of them. I'm just telling everyone on YouTube. And then he pulls a cherry out of a zip in the front pocket. So, right near where his bonus hole would be. You've all seen it. If you haven't, I think it is one of the worst things I've seen from drag. And I think it's pretty widespread misogyny. Let me tell you other things about RuPaul's Drag Race. What they use to judge whether or not a man dressing as a sexualized parody of a woman is any good is charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent, which spells CUNT. Now, if you, as an adult, if that floats your boat, as much as I personally find it distasteful, offensive, vile, and also I've never really got the idea why it's entertaining to go and watch somebody in fancy dress mime to songs. But if that is what you like doing as an adult, go for your life. I hope you have a good time, and the market will decide whether or not someone opening a business for over 18s, the market will decide whether or not it's an appropriate thing to do. Now, as it was, lots of people apparently find it entertaining, um, and they pay to go and see it. And it wasn't for under 18s, and some men made a bit of a living or whatever. Right? It's nothing to do with me. I don't need to stop it. I just hope that people don't go and watch it. But that's again everybody in a free and liberal society is allowed, if they so desire, to go and watch things that I find offensive, because I find, that's just a free society. However, when we now pretend, that what drag is some sort of um identity, vulnerable population where we need to respect whatever those men call themselves, where we then inject those men and put them into mainstream television to normalize it. When we start talking about drag as some sort of LGBTQ rubbish identity, when we are having it on mainstream television, when we've got them inserted into other mainstream shows on our state broadcaster. So in the UK, we have a program called The Sewing Bee, and a drag performer. Unlike anybody else whose job it was, they didn't come dressed as their job, except the drag performer came in full costume. When we do that, and we are basically grooming children into thinking this is a great thing, and then those same children can find those acts, and I assume that's the American RuPaul Drag Race. Um, I assume it is. I'm assuming it's a mainstream program, as opposed to something sort of tucked away somewhere at like 11 o'clock at night. Um, and it's absolutely repulsive. Like I don't know how else to describe it. It's absolutely repulsive. And when we then have these men in our state funded public libraries, and these men are also invited into schools, and loads of children's events have these men. So I went to San Francisco last year as part of the Let Women Speak tour. And one of the things they had, as opposed to just a pumpkin carving thing, is they had drag queens dressed as witches, which is so many levels of insult to women. I can't even tell you. But yeah, so it was, oh, who's the really grotesque? Wiener, Scott Wiener was doing this pumpkin carving, and he's about 6'4". And genuinely, I would not leave a child in a room on their own with that man. And he was flanked by three massive, like 6'2" maybe at the shortest, but they looked like 6'4", 6'5" men in heels, dressed as disgusting sexualized mockeries of women. So this normalization, this weird normalization, is just completely unacceptable. And that's what drag is. That's what drag is doing. That's what they are doing. They are pretending that drag is some sort of persecuted minority. It's not. It's an adult act. We're not having burlesque into school, are we? We're not having strippers in school, but we are apparently now having drag in into to public libraries and reading to children. It's just insane and inappropriate. So if you haven't seen it, you haven't seen the clip, you can go to my Twitter, and you can see whether or not you think that's appropriate for mainstream television. Whether you think it's so grotesquely like lactation fetish, vile, vile stuff. And it should, those sorts of things you shouldn't be able to see unless you've paid and you specifically want to go and see something like that. Because RuPaul's Drag Race is sold as like a mainstream, family fun, family friendly entertainment show. And I'm pretty sure that's not what RuPaul ever intended. But the market, the people controlling the media, want everyone to see that it's normal, and it's fun, and it's glamour, and it's identity, and it's a good way to see that not everyone's the same. But I just don't, and unless we are supposed to think that there is something brave about drag, and valuable about drag in a way, that a woman dressed like that, a woman behaving like that, would totally and quite rightly be shamed. And I am one. I do love shame. I do think shame is a really good thing. I do think we should bring it back. I certainly think I'd like kink shaming. If you don't want people to think that you're a dirty pervert, I don't know, maybe just practice your kink at home just for you and whoever else you involve in it. Consenting adults. So, to go on again, drag is judged on RuPaul's Drag Race as charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent, spelling CUNT. On that program, they will call women fish. Now, that's not because they think that we're amazing aquatic um, things. That's a direct thing about how women smell. It's a really vile, misogynist thing to say. Fish and fishy, are other words they use. So I hate drag. I wish it didn't exist. But I am also an adult that appreciates that in a modern society, that if some people like drag, if some people like doing drag and some people like watching it, then it's none of my business. But it should be in a private venue. It doesn't belong on mainstream television, advertised as family friendly. And it certainly doesn't belong in school libraries, because what that act is, the rubber, massive rubber breasts spraying everything, right? As as you look at that, there is that is drag, right? That epitomizes drag. It's a vile, sexualized parody of women. It's really insulting. And that is what it is. And so it's quite crazy to pretend that we can then not link that particular act to public school libraries. Like I said, if you want to do LGBT inclusion in public libraries, I'd really like to see a woman without makeup who doesn't wear makeup, doesn't have dyed hair, um, but is same sex attracted, like what we call a lesbian. I would really like to see maybe a lesbian reading a story, not necessarily a story about LGBT, but just a different mode of woman reading to children is a great thing. A flamboyant man, a gay man who can read to children, also great, really brilliant. Let's give children different role models. Let somebody with disabilities, maybe a wheelchair user, go and read to children, so children understand that actually people are the same despite the package in which they come. People of color, different people with different religions. Let's have, if we're going to have inclusivity and diversity in public libraries, let's have something every week where somebody from a different community comes and reads to the children. Elderly people come and read to children, because elderly people have probably got a lot of time on their hands, and I think that would be great for children. But drag queens, really? What are we going to have next? The black and white minstrels? Some man blacking up, putting on uh stereo, like really vile mockeries of different races. Should we have that? Is that a good thing? And if not, why not? If we can have drag, why can't we have somebody wearing blackface reading to children? Seems perfectly reasonable. If you're going to have one, I think you should have them all. As people saying that's not the same. I'd really like to know, TikTok people, why you think it's not the same. Why somebody wearing blackface is not the same as a man in drag. Why isn't it? Why isn't woman face the same? And people say it all the time. The reason woman face is not the same as blackface is blackface affects men. Woman face only affects women. It's only mocking women. Blackface is mocking men too. That's why. That's the only difference. Because men don't understand at all, and a lot of women don't either. Men don't understand what it looks like. Jesus, let's say you're a parent and you take your child to drag queen story time. Let's say you're a woman, because I don't reckon dads do it as much unless they're total beta males, right? Let's say you're a mother and you've got daughters and you take them to drag queen story time. What's the lesson there, ladies? What's the lesson? What is it that your daughter is going to learn about the way that man is dressed and the story that man reads? And let's face it, they don't just read stories, they read LGBTQ queer theory crap. They don't just read normal stories. So it really is, it's a whole indoctrination. That's the point of drag queen story time. It's the wholesale indoctrination of children into lies. I mean, I don't think that's the point of drag queen story time, but it is That is what happens. A child goes in there, and because a man is dressed as a mockery of a woman, what those children have to do is suspend any belief and treat that man as if he genuinely is a woman. That's what they have to do. Are the children told? Are the children told at all that those men are men? Is it explained that those men are dressing up? Do those children go away thinking that that person is actually that act? Like, what happens to children when a drag queen reads to them? What are the lessons for girls, especially, or boys? That as long as you put enough makeup on, as long as you dress, and most of them don't dress appropriately, I'm afraid, for anything. Uh, but I don't see the point. I genuinely don't understand the motivation of anyone to taking their kids to drag queen story time. It just feels peculiar, and it's mostly women, and young women are disastrous, often when it comes to making the right decision about what's really going on, and I don't know why they do it. Um, so there's people saying it's a bit of fun. It's not that much fun, actually. It's not fun. The black and white minstrels, they were just a bit of fun. It was entertaining. It's just fun. The makeup, the the way that they did a mocking characterization of black people was just fun. Oh my god, what's wrong with you? It's just fun. It's exactly the same. It's exactly the same. Um, and I just also think men, especially men without children, have far less understanding about what is appropriate for children, and safeguarding. And actually, when it comes to drag queen story time, what's also happened is that people just suspend their safeguarding policies. They don't do background checks on these men. Everybody seems to think it's fine, and I just don't get it. So I thought I would just do something about that because it is the most. I'm just going to play it again for the people in the chat, just in case you missed it.
Oh.
that has that as part of its repertoire is okay for children. So yeah. Drag Race is sold for children. Like, come on, let's not talk shit. Like, you might not let your children watch Drag Race, but the fact that Drag Race is pickled all the way through mainstream media and on other television programs which are family friendly. You had in this country we had Ant and Dec doing it. You get a range of different people guest judging on RuPaul's Drag Race that are associated with other parts of the media. Don't tell me that oh, Drag Race is not for kids when it's absolutely marketed to kids. And if drag isn't for kids and RuPaul isn't for kids, then why have we got drag queen story time? No, I'm not fine with Ant and Dec, love. Gosh, I must say, what's interesting about TikTok is because you get a lot of passing traffic. You get a lot of really stupid comments, like really, really stupid comments. I can only imagine that they're quite young. Um, Let me just talk about pantomimes as well. Whilst the pantomime dame was different, the ugliest women characters were played by men. So in Cinderella, the two ugly sisters were played by men, and the ugly, irrelevant old woman was played by a man. So you had pantomime dames, and you also had the principal boy played by a girl. Now, I have no idea why the principal boy was played by a girl, but I know that the most grotesque women were often played by men, which actually is very much like modern day, the most grotesque people that call themselves women are actually men. Like, they do all look like pantomime dames. So in many ways, we've all had a little rehearsal about these men who parade in women's clothing, because we've seen these very ugly characters on the stage as pantomime dames. But I don't know about you, but I instinctively just find them repulsive and uncomfortable. And men dressed as women have always made me feel quite repulsed and uncomfortable, whether it's a pantomime dame or not. But the two things are not related. They might both not be very nice, but the two things are not related. The pantomime dame is not a sexualized version of women, whereas the drag queen is a sexualized version with sexualized language, and it's a very adult act. So it's not the same. However, I also don't like pantomime dames, and I think they were also a pretty vile mockery of women. So, I will bid you farewell. I will see you on Sunday. Um, so Kids Club hosted a tour by Canadian act Jimbo, who is the act, RuPaul's Drag Race, who's really explicit. So that's Kids Club, Kids Club. I think that might be for children. Anyway, thank you all for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure. You really have boosted my numbers, especially all you hate watchers on TikTok. It's been wonderful. I will be at Speaker's Corner, Reformers Tree at 1 o'clock on Sunday. Do come. It promises to be great. And look, if you can come to Speaker's Corner and you can lend your body to the crowd of people that come to support women speaking, then I promise we will win. If you can bear in mind, haters, that we are definitely reclaiming every single right that you think you've stolen from us. Every piece of language that you think you've taken, women will be taking back. And then we will extract all of this ideological, quasi-religious bullshit out of every single institution, and out of every out of every place that's state funded. The state will no longer endorse such a vile cult, and it is coming, and it's going to be great. Party of Women is coming soon. It's still in the process of being registered with the Electoral Commission. I'm pretty sure that's coming soon. And obviously, if you want to contribute to my trip to New Zealand, where I peaked the world, TikTok, then go to standingforwomen.com, and you can donate there. You can also donate at adulthumanfemale.live, adulthumanfemale.store, adulthumanfemale.space, and adulthumanfemale.us. And by the way, do you know why else we're going to win? Because I never lose.